Hello, guys, and welcome. Hope you're all doing well. There's a small reason for the party. Last week we reached 2,500 members in our Discord, so thank you very much, everyone. If you're not a member of the Discord yet, you can become a member for free by clicking the link in the description. That's the first thing I want to notice before going over to Bitcoin. So thanks everyone. Thanks for all the support. I really appreciate it, and I am very, very excited to take this even further. Today, I want to talk about a couple things. First, we are going to go over some of my thoughts on the market, after which we will be doing the requests from the Crypto Campus favorites. So, without further ado, let's get to it. And the first asset that I want to look at is, of course, going to be Bitcoin. Just going to pull up the unbalanced volume and the accumulation distribution indicator before we move on. Now, as you might have seen on Twitter, in Discord, or basically anywhere on any social media platform right now, everyone is looking at this rising wedge at Bitcoin. And basically, the general consensus seems to be that Bitcoin is going to break down right into the 618, which, if you want to know, you can get by taking this low and this high. Hold on, I should probably adjust this a bit. This low right here, I didn't count in for this ginormous senseless wick due to liquidity shortages, and you will get a target of 7,700. Now, in order to keep this chart clean, I'll just remove that, and that is basically what everybody is speculating on and what everybody is telling their friends to do. And when that happens, I get an anxiety attack. I'm like, no way that everyone is going to be right. And so I look further, and you know, when I looked further, I believe that we are not going to break down yet. My personal, guess, and this is just a guess, is that we're going to go for one more leap up before we actually break down. And the main reason for this is that when everybody is on one side of the boat usually flips over. So what I'm speculating on is one more good move to the upside, probably somewhere to around 9,400, and from there we will see. Now, of course, please keep in mind I'm not in a trade yet, and if I see Bitcoin, basically making a move like this anytime soon, today or tomorrow, general breakout here, I am absolutely gonna get into this trade because this is a promising trade. The main issue for me here is that everybody is on this very promising trade. So that's my thought for Bitcoin right now. Either we will be going down into a correction back to 77, possibly even lower to 67, or we are just going to continue finishing this wedge, after which it will either become a rising wedge, which is bearish, or we might have yet another breakout to the top side, which will make it a thrusting wedge. And in that case, we have a bullish scenario. Now, on the daily, things are still looking okayish, as you can see on the accumulation distribution chart and on the unbalanced volume. There's no real sign of any big sells yet. That being said, please do thread carefully, because I'm just going to remove this now. What I would like to note at this point is that if we go to the weekly chart, we can see a bearish spinning top. That's a doji. For the ones that don't know what a doji is, a doji is a candle without a body. Please excuse me. That is often followed by a bearish move. So of course it would make a lot of sense if we are just going to go down back into support and do our thing, accumulate for a bit, which of course would be very, very good for alts. Speaking of alts, the first asset that I would really like to go over is Ethereum, because if you open Ethereum, you can see the exact same thing happening. We have a bearish spinning top there, also known as a bearish doji, and it is now being followed by a red candle. Yeah, that's the weekly view of things. I don't think that's very interesting for anyone right now. So let us go to the daily, because for me the daily tells a different story. And in my eyes, this is a pretty simple trade. Of course, I might be wrong here, but if you just look at this objectively, this would absolutely form a bull flag. In my eyes, Ethereum is currently following up with a bull flag because I believe Ethereum is gearing up to push through the following resistance, which is going to take up a lot of gas. We need a lot of volume to do so, and it's not going to do that in one go. So I've laid out a couple of Fibonacci targets here. First target 303 after we hit target of 2070 or 270, I should say. I believe there's still more upside to come. That being said, we have to thread carefully here. If we leave this accumulation distribution area, we might be in for a pretty good dump. Yeah, what would a dump look like? I hear you asking. For me, that would be very simple. I'm just gonna line out previous resistance, which absolutely turned support now after creating this thrusting wedge. This is called a thrusting wedge. It's basically an ascending wedge which breaks to the upside. And it would be very logical, at least for me, if Ethereum is just going to go back into that support before continuing up, in which case this would not be a bull flag. But that remains to be seen. Like, there's no way that we can tell this right now. We're just going to have to be patient and see what the market brings us. In any regard, I'm not really into a short-term Ethereum trade right now. I took the breakout here. I'm just waiting this out, still on my longs. And if this happens, if Ethereum manages to go back into support, uh, that would make for a really great buy, because for me that would be very simple. If we take our long tool, we can just put the stop right below this support that we have created, or this trend line, I should say, and we could aim for a target of 370 out of my head. That's where the next Fibonacci is, and coincidentally, that's also where the last bottom was about. Before, of course, we broke through this support and managed to wreck the whole market, which was a pretty bad experience in my opinion. Nobody liked that, but good times are coming. So very excited here. No real trade in this one, just because it's too risky to just market buy now. You know, if this happens, you could potentially get wrecked if you're trading with margin, or you could miss out on a better opportunity. Next in line, and this is not a chart. This is just real quick in between. I've been talking about Piratechain for the last couple of months, and in the meanwhile, it has done a 10x from where I bought my coins over the counter. And I just keep posting this in the Discord. You might have seen it. Piratechain is fundamentally a great, great asset. And the market agrees, because in the last month, not even the last month, let's see, since 23rd of May, we increased from a price of, let's say, 12 cents to 23 cents. So that's a double, a 2x in only 2 weeks, which is very, very promising. Now, my target for Piratechain, I would just stuff it away and keep it for a year, because in my eyes, this is by far the best privacy coin out there. It's a community project based on KMD in combination with delayed proof of work. If you don't know what that means, just go to pirate.black. And what I like about this is that everybody can contribute. If you have a good idea, you can just go down there and, post your idea, create your idea, and if the community likes it, then boom, there you go. And I'm gonna make a full review on this, so I'm just gonna leave this here. Do your own research, but I will cover this in depth. Let's see. Next up is going to be GTO, paired against Bitcoin on the Binance exchange. Now, the reason I'm so excited for GTO right now, I already lined it out there, is the following. Now, as you can see, uh, people who got into this initial exchange offering probably don't feel too good about it right now. That's a solid loss right there. But that being said, I really do like the Gifto project. It had a minus 90%, even from this top. If you take the whole market, it's 95% minus over a period of 326 days of accumulation time. Now, what do we notice here? Recently, the engines were fired on. We had some massive, massive volume going on, and the unbalanced volume is starting to take very, very big leaps to the upside. And another word for unbalanced volume, that's how I like to call it, is the whale spotter. This thing, this indicator, this beautiful thing will tell you whether whales are buying or selling. And as you can see, the current trend is up. These big spikes here are very large orders that go through the market, things that get bought up. So obviously, people are very strongly accumulating this coin. And given the fact that it's on Binance, has a very low market cap, volume's pumping up right now, something is definitely going to happen here. And my vision is that this is a very, very solid trade. If you take your long tool, you can just stop the trade. And I'm just going to adjust this here, just below the previous low. And the target could be the first Fibonacci level. That's where I pretty much expect this to go. And this would give us an R&R of 9.5, which means that you can make 9.5 bucks for every buck you stand to lose. Now, obviously, don't overinvest, don't go crazy here. This is still a high risk asset given to the fact that it is still in a bear trend. Make no mistake. But that being said, it really does look good. And in my eyes, this is one of the more solid trades that's currently out there in the land of crypto. Now, TA wise, no, please excuse me. 1 week. Pull up the relative strength index. There we go. Now, TA wise, I'm not necessarily as sure as I am fundamentally wise. Like the volume here is picking up, and the unbalanced volume actually made a higher low on this previous low here. The RSI didn't, but as you can see, it was oversold back in the 6th of May. So the RSI being oversold, or this asset being oversold in combination with this bullish divergence on the unbalanced volume, leads me to believe that we are pretty soon, maybe not this week, but anywhere this week, next week, going for a good ride. And this would be, you know, coinciding with some sideways Bitcoin action that I'm expecting. I really am expecting a good alt market for the coming year. For the rest of this year, I think alts are going to start picking up just as they did the last time Bitcoin dominance dropped, such as it is doing now. And last but not least, TRX. I covered this in the last stream, and I just want to go over the results. For TRX, we have two solid targets. I actually posted this position right at the breakout here. So if you managed to catch this one with me, I'm not sure if you did, you would be up 31% right now. From here, I pretty much expect 9% more upside than we have had up until now. And that would make for a total of 40% gains. Now, that's a pretty good trade if you ask me. Reason for this, if you look at the unbalanced volume, it's going crazy. Everybody is buying TRX right now. I know that there is some news coming out soon. And what I believe is that we all got to sell the news. Whatever the fuck you do, do not buy the news. That's the worst thing you can ever do. So it would coincide with something like this. So if you're like cautious, if you're risk, if you don't want to risk too much and you manage to get in, back when I posted this trade, we have hit the '05 Fibonacci. So please keep in mind, we might very well get a good retrace here. Obviously, can't be sure. The unbalanced volume is yet again making a new high, and volume on TRX is just going crazy. So this is an ongoing trade. So far, doing really well. Pretty sure about hitting the target, but not as sure as I was before. We are now going to go over some member requests. If you are a favorite and you are in the Discord, you can post requests and I will go over them. Of course, one from Alejandro. What else could it be than KMD? And I get you, man. I get you. KMD is looking solid. Just gonna clear this chart. I like the project just as much as you do. And I actually have some good news. I have some good news. I'm not gonna go into much detail, not gonna explain this too much, but this right here is a Wyckoff accumulation pattern. Now, if you combine that with the good amount of volume that we've had recently, not here, not on Bittrex. If we want to go over the volume, we got to go to Binance. But clearly, and the reason I went to Bittrex is because there's more history there. Clearly, the volume is picking up. And we might very well be in for a treat. I am not entirely sure yet. That being said, um, this is starting to look very, very tasty. Now, there's two things you can do. There's a risk to either of them. But if you want to get into this trade and you're really jumping to get onto KMD, then you could potentially just put your stop below the previous lows. And of course, I hear you asking, but Jeffrey, where do we put the target? Now, I'm not going to take into account these massive wicks here. Just going to pull my Fibonacci over this whole move, and that would leave us at the 382. That's where my target would be, which would give you a R&R of $4 to gain for every dollar to lose, which is pretty good in my opinion. Now, the second strategy that is safer, but it's probably going to be less profitable if it manages to play out, is we're going to wait for breakout. We're going to long after breakout with our stop below the broken trend, and we're going to put the target at the exact same spot. This is going to give you less return. It's a little bit less risky in my opinion, and it would make for a very, very good position. So things are definitely looking good, especially if you look at the unbalanced volume on Binance. It's picking up, it's steady, it's not just this massive spike that I'm talking about, it's steady volume. And so far it's doing really well. So I'm waiting this one out for a bit. I'm definitely going to jump on board once this happens. But I want to play it a little bit safer because keep in mind, this thing is not out of the bear trend yet. It's not in a bull trend, not necessarily in a massive bear trend, but I just want to play it safe. And this is how I would do that. So I hope you like that. I'm gonna go on to the next one. That was from Big O about Gifto. I just did that one. Gifto is definitely in my long-term portfolio, by the way. It's in cold storage for me. I don't intend to sell it anytime soon. Just because I like the project so much. It's on Binance, it's an IEO, and probably at some point it's bound to be pumping for sure. Now, Crypto Turbo is asking me for zero cash or Zcash, as it is now known. ZEC. Honestly, and I'm very, very sorry for saying this, I've never really been a big fan of ZEC, and I'll show you why. This is mainly to be shown on Bittrex, but this thing just screams manipulation. Like these massive wicks we've got everywhere. If you look at the unbalanced volume, there's just one dude or a couple dudes controlling this entire asset, and I've always been saying that, and I'll just keep on saying that. This is a very risky asset to be playing with, just because there's no real technical analysis that can do just to this kind of massive manipulation. Like, this is my whale spotter tool. You can just see these massive spikes, these massive dumps. That being said, if I'm gonna go purely into technical analysis, I'm gonna pull up the logarithmic chart, and this is just my unbiased opinion. We are probably forming a massive falling wedge here. And this would be an accumulation pattern that has been spanning a period of 2 years, which would give this quite a kick. Don't get me wrong, like this really could turn north very soon, very fast, especially after this last dump here. Now, if this is the case, you just take the entire wick, you pull over your Fibonacci, and this is a pretty safe play, in my opinion. If we take our long tool, you can see that we have 175% to gain after breakout. And what the hell? Okay, sorry guys, there we go. After breakout, and if you put your stops right, you can probably lose 20, which is a ratio of 9.5, which objectively, without looking at the unbalanced volume shit that's going on, a really solid trade. So even though I'm I'm personally not very much into trading this asset, I do have to admit that it looks very tempting to get in. So if you're getting in, then there's no real object from my side. Like, it would be a solid trade, no doubt. Next up is waves paired against Bitcoin. Let's see. I believe we have most of the market data on Bittrex. I'm just gonna see if there's a very big difference with Binance. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay, so what we've got going on, and I'm just gonna be very harsh about this, is massive dumps. Like, there's somebody that controls a lot of this asset, probably, and by the looks of it, they want to get rid of it. If you look at the unbalanced volume, it's just doing this, it's sloping, and in my eyes, it would be very dangerous to get into waves right now. I believe it's kind of a forgotten project. You don't really hear a whole ton about it anymore. So there's not a whole lot to say about waves, in my opinion, right now. Volume's picking up. That's pretty much the only bullish thing that I can see here. Sadly, judging by the unbalanced volume, it's volume in the wrong direction, in all honesty. And I could try to make a bullish story out of this and say that it's gonna be okay and all right, but I very much doubt that this bottom here is going to hold. So from my side, I don't really see a trade here. And that's pretty much all I can say about it. Like, sometimes there's just not a lot to see, and there's just not a trade to take. If anything, I would short this. But that's just my personal opinion. Now, Ripple. I'm gonna pair it against USD if you don't mind, for the reason being that, and if people are wondering, like, the reason I pair some currencies against USD, some currencies against Bitcoin, is that some currencies, especially the top 5 currencies here, are mostly traded in USD. There are very large parties that are trading these coins, whereas these kind of coins are mostly consumer coins that are traded against Bitcoin. So that's the reason why I switch from time to time just to keep a clear market perspective and don't go looking at the wrong charts that don't have the right amount of volume. Well, the actual volume is on other charts. Now, Ripple, I've been eyeing Ripple for a while now, in all honesty. And the reason being, and I didn't really post this because I didn't want to, but we broke out of this wedge. And the reason I didn't post it is because I have a rule. If a wedge continues for over 70% of its length, I believe it to be an invalid wedge and it no longer counts. That being said, it appears as though this wedge actually was a wedge. It touched the resistance right there perfectly, made a good retest, and is now headed to the upside. Now, if I were to put a target on this, then we would be very close to the actual first two targets. First being 51 cents, second one being 60 cents. On the shorter term, so just gonna go to the 1 hour. There's a pretty clear pattern, in my opinion. Not much to be left for the guess here. There we go. This is an ascending triangle, which is a bullish pattern. So in my opinion, I'm gonna get really short term here for you guys because I know that some of you are eyeing a trade here. I'm gonna take my trend-based Fibonacci extension, and the difference between a Fibonacci retracement and an extension is that you can use a Fibonacci extension to decide the next target in the current trend. You basically extend the current trend. So you take the low, you pick up the high, and you go back to the last low, which was sitting right here at 36 cents. Now, if this breaks out, I would be aiming for the short term for a target of 54 cents and possibly, if we get really lucky, 65 cents. So 54 and 65 are the targets for Ripple if this does break out. And I wouldn't be too surprised if it does. So keep an eye on Ripple. And in general, I'm pretty bullish about alts, but I'm quite sure about Ripple. Now, the only chance that we have that would invalidate this move, of course, is a break just below this support right here. If this support gives way, I would personally just get out of the trade and base my next long on this previous stop that has been set here. It's currently sitting at 37 cents. Pundi, that's the last request that I have. And I get this one a lot, actually. Just gonna go over the daily. And in my opinion, and I'm gonna say the exact same thing that I said last time. This is still creating a descending wedge and it has still not broken out, although the volume really is beginning to pick up here. So what I would personally wait for is for this breakout. As I've said before, still no breakout, but once it does break out, we've got some sweet targets at 31 satoshis and 42 satoshis, which would make for a gain of 130% or potentially 220%. So that's what I'm currently waiting for regarding Pundi. It's not very difficult. It's pretty simple in my opinion. Unbalanced volume is looking good. It's only going upwards. Right now it's just a waiting game. I'm pretty sure this is bound to happen. I just don't know when. And that's the whole thing right here. But I'll keep an eye on it. So once it does definitely gonna make sure to call this one out now. And we are pretty much through our requests. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Don't forget to join the Discord if you're not in Discord yet. The link is in the description in YouTube. And I thank you all for watching, and I will see you guys soon again. Have a great day.